Yo, what's going on, everybody? Poltergeist here, coming at ya. You see that little Halloween theme right there, and you guys probably can tell by me saying that name that the tier lists are fucking back. And, well, let's just say I took a little bit of a hiatus right from them, mainly because, you know, you only make so many random-ass tier lists, and people are asking for, like, fucking knee tier lists and For Honor Rule 34 tier lists, and it gets to a point where you're just like, maybe I should stop for a little bit. But if you guys remember, I did make an emote spam tier list, but it was only covering the default emote spams for the characters. That video went live on February 25th, which is a long time ago, but I did say in that video, if it reached 7,000 likes, I would make a two-part video showing off both free roam and combat emotes as a massive, complete, all emote spam tier list video. And then I would have to spend some of my own hard-earned cash to do that as well. Well, the video has 8,600 likes, so you guys definitely smash that, which is fucking insane. So we're moving on right here. All right, I did spend some of my money on this. I will let you know about that in just a second. But just another goal for you guys: if we can get this video 40,000 views in the first week, and you know, not even worrying about it, but if we could get 5k likes as well, that would be pretty sick. I will do the second part of this in the coming next couple of weeks, because I will have to spend, again, more of my own money to do this. And what a great way for me to transition to today's sponsor, Commanders of Valor. Now, Commanders of Valor is a tabletop turn-based strategy game set before the Common Era. You get to play as factions like Rome, Parthia, and Greece, each with a unique roster, playstyle, and gameplay mechanics. Even in its alpha state, the game ran really well and it was fun, but challenging when it came to the strategies that you can implement. Now, one aspect of the game when it's released that I think is going to be super cool is the role-playing. So each character in your faction or family has their own attributes and motives, and you can send them to seek things like education, pursue their hobbies, or even become a famous sports champion. Now, when you make these decisions, it kind of dynamically shapes your faction and how they will grow and perform in battle, and how they kind of think of you as a leader. Now, I thought this was really cool because I don't think I've ever seen a strategy game kind of take on this role-playing approach, at least a tabletop one at that. But who is this game even made by? Well, it was created by Moonlit Sky Games, which is a small video game developer in Vancouver. They wanted to create an innovative game experience and contribute to the video game community to create a free, honest, and transparent market centered around the fans and their rights as consumers. Now, they have been extremely nice and generous towards me with being able to show off their game, so I want to help them wherever necessary. Now, this is where I need your guys' help. So they just started a Kickstarter for Commanders of Valor, and basically the goal of this is to raise funds to add more factions into the game, different gameplay mechanics, and a super awesome and historically accurate campaign to it. Now, if you want to support them, the Kickstarter link will be at the top of the description, as well as their website, Instagram, and Facebook if you want to keep up with the game's progress or learn more about the company in general. The release date is set for the first quarter of 2020, but with your guys' help, we can make this an even better game from what it already is, which it's already pretty sweet. So thank you guys so much for this, and thank you Moonlit for this opportunity, and let's get back into the video. So what did I do this? Did I buy every single fucking emote? Is this guy an absolute madman? Well, short answer, no, because I realized this. Basically, it would be over 1 million steel, basically, to buy the emotes that are different. You know, I'm not talking about, like, you know, ones like the Assassin's Creed, the Leap of Faith one. Like, those are the same for everybody, or in, like, the Shadows of HITOKIRI. Those are all the same. So if I bought basically all the unique emotes for the characters, I would need probably well over 1 million steel, and if that makes any sense to you, $100 USD gets you 150,000. So yeah, I'd be going into the 4 digits when it comes to putting money on here. And unfortunately, I don't get like ninja numbers on the YouTube, so I can't just throw that out willy-nilly. All right, your boy still gotta keep some in the bank. So what I basically did is I went through, did some research as well online, but I also did this on PC. You can kind of look at emotes just as an example on the Warden. Like, you can kind of move off right here and move back onto the emote, and you can kind of see the spam, and that can kind of show you it. But if you guys saw this the entire video, I'm sure you guys would probably go into epileptic shock, and I don't want to be responsible for that. So to keep you guys safe, I'm going to refrain from doing that. So I bought what I thought were the 2 best emotes from each character, and then I'll also make a little like point on some of the other ones that they have that are probably good spam as well, but I'll only be showing them off in the recording of the ones that I think are potentially the best. Now, let's just say to start this, I'm pretty sure I had like 70k steel, and then on top of that 70k steel, I bought $100 worth of steel, and then on top of that $100 worth of steel, I bought $20 worth of steel. So I used probably, what is that, like 150, 175, probably close to 250,000 steel just to make this video. So yeah, would appreciate if you could get the views up, guys, on this one. Thanks. But I'm basically gonna go in, rate all these emotes on our scale and whatever, kind of looking at, you know, obviously the spam. Also, some of the noises that the characters make in there is definitely a little added bonus, but we're still looking at the overall emotes that they have. I know, like, you know, looking at all of the different ones, we're not just looking at the 2 that I think are the best. We're gonna, you know, look at it collectively. Although I didn't buy all of them, I can at least tell you from the little testing that I'm able to do on the PC, you know, what I think looks decent and whatnot. Because yeah, I didn't want to spend, you know, over $1,000 buying emotes. Believe me, I enjoy the game, but my wallet doesn't enjoy when I make those purchases. But I am excited to get back into the tier list again. I did have a lot of fun making them, so it is nice to kind of go back to it after the little hiatus I took, and I hope you guys will enjoy this one as well. And always with the video, we are going to rate this from our scale of S to D, D being dog shit, S being super sweet. Feels good to say that again. So let's get right underway and hop in to the D tier. Alright, so starting off in the D tier, and what I think is the worst emote spam character in the entire game is Valkyrie. Pains me to say it, as Valkyrie is one of my mains, but she just really doesn't have good spam. Her 2 best emotes that I think for spam for the free roam are Feels Good Man and Nothing to See, but that kind of describes Valkyrie's emote spams in general. There's really nothing to see, as in, well, she doesn't really move in any of them, so that's the main thing. I tried looking through all of them just to see if there was anything good, and there really isn't. I think Make Some Noise used to kind of have like a bird flappy wing type deal, but it doesn't do it anymore, so they kind of like nerfed the shit out of it. And the rest of Valk's things are just basically her standing still. So that's why she's in the D. Next up in the D tier, we have the HITOKIRI, and it pains me because I actually had to buy an emote for the HITOKIRI, but the best one that this character has easily is the T-pose one. That one actually has a pretty decent amount of movement, but the rest of them really don't have anything. I chose the Tokyo Jisetsu for the second one. It's got a little bit of a head nod. There's a couple that HITOKIRI has where they're just head nods basically, but the rest of them kind of suffers from the same thing that Valk does, where there's just the movement is too slow to start up, so you can't really spam it very well. Next up in the D, we have Nobushi, and for the Nobushi's best ones, I picked Kicking Your Can and Thriller. There's some okay ones that Nobushi has as well, like, you know, like Snookered is decent. And I think even like Feeling It actually has a little bit of decent movement to it, but a lot of it is just like kind of just shoulder movements where she kind of moves her right shoulder and then brings her weapon forward type thing. So she just kind of, I don't know, she does the little Uzi Vert dance or whatever on a lot of things, but they're not that great. Nothing really that's super good for spamming, so that's why Nobushi's in D. And the final character in the D tier is going to be the Chundi, and the ones that I chose for their best are the Watch and Learn, which is one of the default ones where they kind of just like put out their sword and like point at you kind of thing, and Show and Tell, where it's kind of like a little monkey scratch on the armpit. That's not too bad, to be honest, but when I look at the rest of them, like their 2 best ones that they have aren't that great. And then when you look at the rest of them, well, they're basically nothing happens in them, so they're not good spam at all. So with that being said, based on all the other characters, the Chundi is in D. Now we'll be moving into the C tier. The C tier actually has some, you know, pretty decent spam from some of the characters, but the main issue with these ones is that it's pretty much only their best ones are like the good spam. They don't have anything else on there that's really taking them up to the next level. And the first character in the C tier is going to be Peacekeeper. I was pretty close to putting PK into B, but comparatively to the other characters, I feel like C was a better choice for her. Her best emote spams, I think, are the best and the Freestyle Mogul's. The best, she kind of just has her arms perpetually out in front of her, and it just kind of looks funny. And Freestyle Mogul, she does the little twirl with the swords. She has a couple other okay ones, but they're not super crazy. Like Fist Pump is okay, as well as the spam for the Recognition emote. That's pretty decent, but the rest of them for PK aren't that great, so I feel that C is a good place for her. Next up in the C tier, we have BP. You know, BP doesn't have too many emotes to choose from, but I think his best ones are the Soul T, the T-pose one, as well as the Stolti, Stolidi, Fatui. I don't know what that means, but he kind of just like has his sword and he's kind of just like hanging onto it with like nothing. It's just kind of floating underneath his hand. I think that's pretty good. The rest of them, the I'll Give You a Show is a little okay. He kind of mini T-poses in the spam, but the rest of them, there's really nothing going on, so I feel like I couldn't put BP any higher than C. Next up in the C tier, we have Shinobi. I think Shinobi was another character that I almost put into B tier as well, but just based on some other characters, I felt like Shinobi just had to be a little bit lower. I swear it's not for my hatred of the character, I promise, but I think Shinobi's best emote spams are the Shinobi Coin Toss and the Dirty Bird. They kind of both got the arm movements going on for them, but those are the kind of most movement that the character has. The other ones, Shinobi always like starts off with their arms crossed for some reason. I don't know why. I guess it's just to be the edgy ninja that they are. So a lot of the times it's just a spamming of them just with their arms crossed and you don't see anything else. But at least the Coin Toss and Dirty Bird, they start the movement pretty quickly, so you can get a little bit of spam out of there, but nothing too crazy to push it up any higher in the tier list. Next up in the C tier, we have Shugoki. Kind of pains me to say that as well, but I was looking through a lot of Shugoki stuff, and I have a lot of Shugoki emotes, and honestly, there's not too many that are good at spamming. Like, I use Leap of Faith, honestly, for Shugoki, but everyone has Leap of Faith, so I can't really count that, but I just think that's funny for the character. I think Shugoki's best ones are the Pumped emote as well as the Tantrum, and the Tantrum doesn't even have that great a movement. I think Pumped is probably the best spam for the character. I mean, like, you can look at some of the stuff, like Heck Yes has a little bit of movement as well, but for the most part, Shugoki's not that great. I just like the movement on Pumped and Tantrum, even though Tantrum's just a little bit less. You can kind of spam the sit down if you hold it out a little bit longer. But yeah, Shugoki, it's a little disappointing, but C tier for him. And then the final character in the C tier is the Shaolin. To be honest, Shaolin's not too bad. Doesn't have too many emotes again because, coming in from the Wulin, some of the newer characters. But I think Shaolin's best spams are Dandelion in the Wind. I think that is the best one. And then the Failure is pretty good because he just kind of like crouches a bunch and like shakes his head. He has a lot where he just like will shake his head randomly, but some of them don't start very quickly, so you don't really get to see anything. The only other like decent spam that the Shaolin has, I think, was on the Lookout emote, but just because the fact that a lot of them are really, you're not getting anything on there, I've had to put them in C. Although Dandelion in the Wind is a pretty solid one. Now we'll be moving into the B tier. The B tier is going to be, I guess, what you would say average, but there are some pretty solid spams in here. Whether it's just being one that is absolutely incredible or just a pretty decent roster of spam throughout the entire character, and let's get right into it. First up in the B tier, we have the Warden, which I kind of showed a little bit what my emotes were at the beginning of the video, but I think the best emote spam for sure on Warden is the Ball Hog, and then the Power Surge is the second best one, I think. You gotta be a little bit slower on the spam for the Power Surge, so you can kind of get a little bit of thrust. But as for the rest of Warden's ones, they're not too bad. He's got a lot of like peen touch ones when you spam, where he kind of just puts his hand where his crotch is. I definitely can respect that. The Victory Grunt as well is pretty solid. So I mean, they're good, but they're not anything that's like the best, so I had to put him just in B and then to the average tier. Next up in the B tier is the man himself, Centurion, and I think Centurion's best spam is the Good Life, obviously, the little lay down one, but that's a pretty solid one, as well as the Victorious, which I think is a default free roam emote, but there's also some other decent ones, like Improper Tactics isn't that bad, as well as the Clear Miscalculation. You got a decent amount of sword movement, but one of the also funny ones is the kill card for it, where he does O just basically immediately, so you can kind of spam that voice line on there, which is pretty funny. But I think Cent has some good ones, but nothing, again, too crazy to push him into the A or S tier. Alright, next in the B tier is going to be Conqueror. Now, I honestly wanted to put Conqueror lower because, to be honest, the character has shit spam. But they do have one, which is the Psyched, or Ra, as most people have come to know, which is potentially the most recognizable emote spam in the entire game, probably the most famous, so I felt it was a disservice if I was to put them anywhere lower than B. But the other one that I think is okay is Kickflip. The rest of Conqueror's emote spam is honestly pretty trash, but I feel like you can't really make it up once you get something like the Ra emote. I mean, like, how do you top that? It's going to be pretty hard, so B tier for the Conq. Next up in the B tier, we have the Gladiator, and I think Gladiator's best emote spams are the "Are you not entertained?", which is one of the default ones where they kind of yerk off the staff of the trident. It's kind of funny. And then the sweep is, I think, the best one that they have. But there's also some pretty decent ones that they have just in general. Like the Gladiator coin toss, he like moves his head really, really fast, which is pretty cool. And also the kill card, he kind of also hits the little Uzi Vert shoulder dance, which is pretty funny. But there's some pretty good movement on a lot of the Gladiator emotes, so I think it's pretty nice. And obviously the voice lines here and the grunts and whatnot is pretty solid as well. But again, not pushing them up into the A and S tier range. Next up in the B tier is going to be the Kensei. Kensei, obviously, best emote spam that they have is Blessed Glory. It's the best probably teabag in the game, I would say. And then the second best emote spam, I think, is for Rally. Kensei has a lot of emotes that kind of look like Rally in general, where the sword is like initially like kind of at the shoulder, and they kind of spin it down around them, kind of deal. Like the Recognition kind of does the same thing, I think, as well as the I don't remember what the name is. The Shame is what it is. So they kind of do the same thing, but those ones are much slower, so you can't get a good spam out of it. So Kensei spam, besides like those first two, are kind of meh, but Blessed Glory is a really, really solid one. So I felt like B was at least necessary for the Kensei. And the final character in the B tier is going to be the Orochi. Best emote spams, I think, for Orochi are the Here I Am, which is a classic. I mean, that one's great, honestly. It pisses me off too, which is an added bonus if the emote spam can kind of piss you off, which that one definitely does the job. And then I think You Lose is probably the next best one. It's kind of a mini teabag type deal, but he kind of does a little jitter to it as well. I like it. I think it's really nice. I think those are probably the two best ones. There's not a lot of movement on some of the other ones that the Orochi has as far as like for spamming and whatnot. I mean, the drop katana has a little bit of movement with the arm going across the chest and whatnot, but the Here I Am and You Lose are pretty dang solid as just the two best ones, so I figured B was a good spot for Orochi. Now we'll move into the A tier. The A tier is, again, just solid emote spam, but it's just not at the tippity top of the iceberg, but they're still pretty damn nice. Now, first up in the A tier is going to be the Jormungandr. Now, I was wanting to maybe put Jorm into S, because I was really surprised. Most of the emotes that they have actually pretty solid spam. But just because it's the newest character and there's not as many emotes for them, I felt like I shouldn't put them into S. But I think the two best ones they have are the Rowdy and the Predator, especially with the little like chest beat on the Predator is pretty solid. But you know, all of them are good. The Agitator has good spam. Armbreaker's probably one of the worst ones. The Bitter is also probably one of the worst ones, and then the Foolish is decent for the movement. But the first like three of like the Rowdy, the Predator, and the Agitator, those have all really good movement. So I was really surprised to see this for the Jorm. Good spam. Next up in the A tier, we have the Warlord. Warlord is probably the best contender for best teabag with Kensei, either Blessed Glory or the YME. Which one do you guys think is the better teabag? Let me know in the comments. Is it Warlord or is it Kensei? I think they're both competing pretty high up there. But the Warlord has, again, the best is the YME. And I also think the second best one that they have is the Discobolus. I'm probably mispronouncing that. That one's not that great. But they also have decent spam on like Shotgun is a pretty solid one. Headbanger's got a little sword twirl at the bottom there where he kind of like moves it up in there. Bang Your Drum is a little bit of a slower spam type one, but it can, if you just want to smack your shield a bunch, you know, I'm all for that. Some of the other ones are then just kind of like the shoulder movement again. So that's kind of why I wasn't at the S tier, because there was just a few that were like, when I was looking at other characters where a few of theirs were like, oh, very nice. Next up in the A tier, we have the Shaman. I think Shaman's best emote spam is grandstanding. That one is actually hilarious for me to look at. It's just like flapping her arms in there. It's hilarious. And then obviously people know Tantrum, which is the very aggressive dab that the Shaman has, which is a very good spam as well. Off the Top is another decent spam where they kind of are, doing the little fist pump with the hatchet in hand, which is pretty solid. And then they have a couple other somewhat decent ones, but nothing too crazy. Like Spin Doctor is an okay one, as well as the Kill Card. But other than that, like their movement is kind of similar to those of other spams, where they're just kind of like moving their shoulders back and forth. But it is pretty solid. from the Shaman, but not quite to the S tier. Next up in the A tier, we have the Nuxia, and Nuxia again was another one that surprised me. She has 2 really, really good ones, I think, for spamming, and then 2 just good ones for spamming. Then the rest of them are kind of meh. So you didn't see that is a great one for just spinning and everything, but the bread dance is top notch. That is a top notch fucking emote spam. That one's really good. But then Peekaboo and Juggling are both pretty solid ones as well. So she's got a pretty good cast of emote spams. You can kind of mix and match with her. But again, I just felt not quite to the level of S tier, but Bread Dance is actually hilarious. I don't play Nuxia, but I'm kind of glad I bought it. And the final character in the A tier is going to be the Jang June. Now, Jang June, it pains me, but if he would have still had his Tornado emote spam that he had on release, which I think was from the Still Got It emote, if I'm not mistaken, he would easily be S tier. That was one of the best spams that I've ever seen. But he still has pretty solid ones. Old Bones is one of my favorites, as well as Armed and Ready. A lot of good movement with this weapon on there. But the Victory Twirl is another solid one, and the Looking Good are also pretty good with the movement. But Old Bones is definitely my favorite, and Jang June still has pretty decent spam, but it still annoys me to this day that they had to remove the tornado that you could make from the emote Still Got It back in the beginning. That was so good. Now we are moving into the S tier. Obviously the S tier is the best emote spam entirely for the free roam emotes. Remember, I am going to do the combat emotes in a separate video. Just wanted to separate these two things. Now these ones, like I said, best of the best. Pretty solid spam throughout all of their emotes, or if it's not that, they have like 3 or 2 that are just incredible. So let's get into it. Now starting off in the S tier, should be no surprise, the Lawbringer. My personal favorite from the Lawbringers that we have right here are, obviously the Glorious, which is one of the default ones as well, which is, it's probably one of the best default spams as well. And then the Flesh is Weak is probably my other favorite one. I find that one to be hilarious. His body's just moving all in kind of like contorted ways, and he's kind of putting his head down. But I mean, you can honestly pick a bunch of other Lawbringer free roam emotes for spam as well. Like Hard-Headed is still really good. Pumped Up might be one of his less good ones, one of his worst ones. Case of the Mondays is still good. Clean and Jerk, I don't know if that one actually makes that weird beep sound throughout, but if it does, that's pretty solid. The kill card is meh, and then I Did This I find to be pretty awesome as well. So just a pretty solid lineup of emotes right there from the Lawbringer. So I feel definitely deserving of the S. Next up, again, shouldn't be a surprise, is the Raider. My favorite ones from Raider, obviously my first favorite is going to be the Whitewater one. I think that's most people's favorite for the free roam spam on Raider. It's hilarious, but I also love the Axe Press for spam. But he's got just so many good ones as well. He's got the Want This, which is, I think, again, one of the default ones that you get, which is pretty dang solid. Hulking Out is pretty good. And then you've got the Flag, which is just another good spam one on there. Like, Raiders just got the good stuff. It's just really good. Everything is solid. And then, like, Whitewater and Axe Press are just some of the most top tier ones, I think, and just in the entire category to begin with. So definitely deserving of the S tier. Next up in the S tier, we have the Berserker. Berserker's got some great ones. I figured at least maybe Zerk was going to be an A, but I felt like I just had to give the S tier for some really good spam. Axe for Victory, again, I think one of the default ones. Really great spam on there, as well as Flip Out. It's more of an aggressive teabag, right? He's getting the arms into there as well. I don't think it's quite a level of teabag that of the Warlord and the Kensei, but it's a pretty solid one nonetheless. But he's got some good ones, like Despair is still pretty solid. Row Your Boat, again, pretty good as well. Like, he's got some good ones. Show Off, pretty solid. Major Flail, it's good. All of them are just nice. Good stuff to see. The Zerk has got some great spam. My personal favorite, though, Flip Out for sure. Now, next up in the S tier is Highlander. And Highlander kind of cracked the code because he gets 3 emotes right there. He's got the Offensive Stance emote, which we can't forget about. That one is top tier as well. Plus, you don't even have to buy it. So that's good stuff, right? He's got the 3 emote on deck, and that's good shit. But the other ones that I find to be really good as well is the Lumberjack Chop, as well as Wipeout. Wipeout, again, just solid nuts into the face. Good stuff as well. The I think what's the first one? The I Have the Power is kind of a teabag if you let it go out a little more, but it makes that ooh sound, which is great. The rest of Highlanders are okay, some good movement, just lots of sword stuff, occasional hand movements and stuff. They're not as top tier, but the fact that he's got the offensive emote spam, right? He's thinking ahead. He's got the 3 emotes, and he's got some pretty solid ones in his lineup. Maybe not as many as like a Raider and Lawbringer, but still really good from the Highlander. And finally, the last character in the S tier is going to be Aramusha. I don't know how many times Aramusha has been into the S tier, but I can tell you it's not been many, if I'm going to be honest. So the 2 best ones that I think Aramusha has are Throw It Down and Thrusters On, with Thrusters On being one of the best emote spams just in the game entirely. Especially when you get the sound from there. That is great. But he also has some other good ones, like the Ronin Mawashi is a good one when you're twirling your blades as well. The Maniac is good as well because it's like just little mini swords to the side before he goes in for the dab. You can also do a little bit slower and just spam dabs on that, which is pretty solid. Spinal Tap has pretty solid spam as well. And the Omedetai has a good, nice little like hip bend before he's about to do his little disco dance. But Thrusters On is just such a good emote spam. It's so top tier. You had to put Aramusha in S. It's good stuff. And that's going to do it for the video, guys. Thank you for watching. I know it is a longer video with that intro I did as well as the sponsorship again. Thank you to Moonlit Sky Games for the opportunity here. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. You can let me know by leaving a like and comment what your favorite emote spam for the free roam is in the comments below. Also, I'm going to put the main list on here so you guys can see the whole cumulative thing just to make it a little bit easier for you. And let me know as well what you think maybe the best is for combat spams, because I'm going to be making that video relatively soon because I know you guys will be able to smash those numbers I said in the beginning. I do appreciate all of you guys. Remember, do all that shit that I said before with the like, commenting, and subscribing. Getting close to 100K. It's been your boy Tony. I will talk to you in the next one. Adios.